Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Game Changers this Sunday morning. And today we have a very interesting guest on the show. His name is Mr. John Nganga. He served in the petroleum industry for around 30 years. And now he's a motivational speaker. He writes several books. He has such a big heart for marriage. And we are so glad to have him on the show.
Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Mr. John Nganga.
Asante.
Tell us a bit about yourself. Who is John Nganga? How long have you known the Lord? Tell us about your marriage. You have a passion for marriage and family and business. Tell us everything.
I always make fun of people asking, you ask somebody, who are you? And then they tell you they are an engineer. I say, when you do that, you are not answering the question of who you are, you are answering the question of what you are. And I say, we are not human doings, we are human beings. So you don't say what you do, you say who you are. Who am I? I'm a man who considers himself a young man, born just before the emergency, and went to school from the late 50s through primary, high school, and finally finished my A-level at Alliance in 1973. Secondly, another way of looking at me is a young person who gave his life to the Lord more than 40 years ago, and made a commitment in a youth meeting that I would like to be committed to God and to serve Him all my life. And yet, I have never had a call to be a pastor, and so have never been a pastor, but I believe God has called me to the professional world to serve Him. So I'm a Christian professional, like the title of one of the books I have written. Another way of saying, who am I? I'm the husband of Rebecca, who enjoys the micro-organization of a family, where you are taken as you are, accepted as you are. Even if I was a bad man, my children will not have another father except me. Even if you think I'm great or small, my wife will always know me as a husband. And I'm so happy to belong to a family that accepts me as I am. And I don't have to pretend. I can be myself. When I fail, I can tell my wife, today I messed up. And she will cry with me and then rejoice with me. I am a husband and a father. Which is the other way of looking at who John Nganga is. John Nganga is someone who enjoys helping the people to realize their potential.
Now that you've been married for 35 years, and you seem to be happily married, marriages in my generation are really suffering. What are we doing wrong, and what would you advise us to do?
Like the series in my website on marriage state, if originally marriage was traditional marriage, a wife had no voice. She was to be seen, not to be heard. And basically, a wife was a total dependent. So that way men were in control of women. In addition to that, a woman could not come to a marriage unless she was purchased. You paid something called a dowry, which is a purchase price. Some people these days are trying to make it less. But in my tradition, it was actually called a purchase. In fact, when people asked you, are you married? They didn't say that. They said, did you buy a wife? So in our tradition, you bought a wife. Now, once you are bought, you knew who you are in the home. And so marriage was very stable in tradition because the wife had no voice. Then came my generation, and we still respected our traditions because how we were born by grandparents who had never, we met our grandparents who had never had any touch of Christianity. So we could see the way they treated their wives. We saw how they were respected. So we and our wives were therefore able to get a bit of that, despite the challenge of the fact that now my wife was not totally dependent upon me. She's a professional, I'm a professional. Came to the generation now of our children. And those children, many of them, have grown up in families of educated parents, where the wife, the mother is independent, able to provide herself. The wife, the husband is able to do that. So the father and the mother are rather like two individuals. So what has happened? Women are getting to marriage ready to be equal to men. Men are getting to marriage ready to make the woman become like the grandmother. That is the struggle of our current marriages. They do not know which way to go. They don't accept the traditions, nor do they accept the Christian principles. It is the meaninglessness and lack of definition of marriage that is causing a lot of marriage separations and divorce. What's my recommendation? Make up your mind. Will you become traditional or you will become Christian. In between, nothing exists. It means you enter into marriage, the husband has certain expectations, which the husband doesn't agree with. The husband has expectations, which the wife does not agree with. It does not take the honeymoon. People are quarreling within the honeymoon. By the time you are home, you are wondering, did I make a mistake? But it is what I call expectation management. People are not clear. If you are to make a decision, like my wife decided to, that since we are not traditional marriage, we will make a Christian marriage. What does the Bible expect of marriage? And me as a husband, I'll play that role. My wife as a wife, she will play that role. Now, our expectations are managed by the scriptures. That way we are able to accept one another and our failures.
What does a Christian marriage look like? What are the values that make a Christian marriage?
The Christian values, first of all, they are not in the head. They are written in a document. Just like in 2010, Kenya wrote a constitution that's the mother of all laws. The Christian mother of all laws is the Bible, and it's in writing. And like if you go through my meditations, you'll find I take the scriptures. For example, marriage is not man's idea. Marriage is God's idea. Adam at no time did he decide I need a wife. He never even knew he needed a wife. It's God. So that creates the first value of marriage. That's not your idea, it's God's idea. So you are not to run marriage the way you want. You run it the way the manufacturer wants. When you buy a mobile, my generation is accused of buying a mobile, never bother to look at the manufacturer's manual. So you buy at 45,000 worth mobile, and all you do is ring and receive. Surely that's a number of worth 2,000. So unless you're willing to read the manual, don't buy a mobile worth more than 2,000 shillings. It's the same thing with marriage. The Bible is a manual for a Christian marriage. So the first thing is, the first Christian value is marriage is God's idea. His manufacturer. I intend to live my marriage the way he intended it. Value number 2, he actually, in talking about marriage, he says, if you are going to have a marriage, you must live. Genesis chapter 2, verse 18 to 24. For this reason, a man shall leave father and mother and be joined to his wife. In paraphrase, you do not join your wife until you have decided in your head you are ready to live to part with your parents. But can you imagine that those two values, if you have them, it means that you understand that in your marriage, it's not a contract of 2 people. It's a contract of 3 people. There is husband, wife, and God. So the 2 of you cannot decide to cancel it without consulting the third party. I normally say marriage is not a contract, it's a covenant. Because God is in it. So you don't just say, I'm dumping you. You have to explain it to the third party in the relationship. That's a Christian value. That's why a Christian cannot just pick and drop a wife like a football. Advice is something you consider. And you don't receive advice from one person. You receive from here, from there. The decision you make is on a husband and wife. It's a full parliament with full voting rights. The others are just advisors. And any wise family seeks advice. But any wise family does not act on advice. It evaluates the advice and makes a decision. That's a Christian value.
Now that you're retired, John, you do so much mentoring and teaching and motivational speaking. So what is your take on mentoring and what's your advice for young professionals right now?
The first thing I must say is that the word mentoring is a very new word. When I left university, we didn't look for mentors or call anybody a mentor. But you had people who took advice. You have people you admired. The first qualification I've written in my book, The Character of an Influential Leader, I talk about mentoring. And I say the first qualification of a mentor is a friend. He's not a coach who can be paid. A mentor is a friend. I don't have one mentor. I have many mentors. Why do I recommend everybody has more than one mentor? Because nobody is perfect. I know myself. I know how many areas of weaknesses. And when I'm mentoring anybody, I tell him, on this area, don't copy me. I have challenges in that area. I always tell young people, please listen to me. I'll share my failures with you so that if you also you fail in areas, you will be original. Don't copy my failures.
Thank you for mentioning that you're not perfect. So after 30 years of the professional world, after 35 years of marriage, if you were to go back, what would you do differently?
like I say, in every area, there are weaknesses. And there are things that you do better. One of the things that I give myself advice, and of course I still have time to, if the Lord gives me more time, I still have time to actually improve on the issue of professional life. I would like myself, if I can, to spend a little more time with people. Sometimes I've been, especially before I retired, I was too busy to give time to people. And I think that has not been very good. Tell, never discipled anybody. It has to be tell and do together. And I haven't done very well in terms of investing myself to young people beyond 1 or 2 meetings. I need to improve that area of discipling people. The other area I've had a lot of challenges is because my life, I've been a public person. I started, the first time I was invited to preach in the university, there was only one university, in 1977. After that, there are now many universities. I speak in many. Even this very year, I've been to Pwani University, to Nairobi University. This weekend, I'm in Kemu, Kenya Methodist University in Meru. I move a lot. That means it's a real challenge to divide up my time between my family and public life. It's something that I need to keep managing, because the most important part of you is your family. However public you are, if you don't do well in managing your family, the Bible says you don't qualify to be a leader. Deacons, elders must first of all manage their home well before they manage the church. And those are areas I struggle with, and I would pray that God helps me even as I move into the future.
Thank you so much, Mr. John Nanga. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your insights with us after all these years of serving the petroleum industry in this country.
Thank you.
Guys, that was Mr. John Nganga, reminding us the importance of getting mentors in different areas of your life. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday. Look out for another game changer coming right here on Tukuza.